Hey everyone, this is ANC's 1C. Oh, hi, dog. ANC 1C's Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee meeting for April. I am Commissioner Megan Faulkner, the chair of this committee. We have our other two committee members here, so I think we can get started. The first item on our agenda today is a BZA. A BZA case. If you are here for that, could you raise your hand and we can promote you to present? It's the okay, great. The BZA case for 2920 18th Street. And thank you, Gordon, for sharing the agenda, which has a link to this case. All right, so go ahead and take it away.
Hey, Eric, are you on mute?
Yeah, we can't hear you if, yeah.
It looks like you're not muted in the system, but your microphone's not working.
How about now?
We got it.
Okay, apologies. I was on a WebEx with BZA all day, so that was working. Hi, commissioners. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Eric DeBear. I'm Land Use Counsel from Cozen O'Connor on behalf of the applicants, Matt and Aaron, who are also on and will introduce themselves momentarily. As you noted, we have a BZA case that is going before the board in June, and we will, or I should say, I will walk through the plans momentarily, but I just wanted to let Matt and Aaron introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their project.
Thanks, Eric. We're the Radomskis. I'm Aaron. This is my husband, Matt. We purchased our home here on 18th Street in mid-2020. We have a 10-month-old daughter and a 3-year-old corgi, and we chose the Lanier Heights, Adams Morgan area to be our home based on the amazing location, proximity to shops, restaurants, outdoor space, and providing easy access to so many neighborhoods that we love in DC. We really want our daughter to grow up in a diverse neighborhood, which is another thing that brought us to this area. And as we continue to grow our family, we want to continue to support Adams Morgan and Lanier Heights as a whole. Of course, since COVID, we've been extremely cautious, and we continue to do so now, especially since she can't be vaccinated. As you probably know, there's no timeline for no clear timeline of when kids under 5 are going to be able to be vaccinated, and she's far from that. So we have been in the works of trying to build a deck off of the back of our home. And it has been something we've been thinking about since we moved in, to provide this safe outdoor space for her and friends and family. And then we want to be able to provide that for her and our growing family, and also continue to invest in our home and this community that we love so much.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
With all that being said, I wanted to also walk through just a very brief presentation for the commissioners so you can get an idea of what's being proposed and what relief we're seeking. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And so as Matt and Aaron mentioned, they are located on 18th Street. The property is in the RF1 zone between Quarry Road and Summit Place. Right across the alley to the rear of the property is the Harvard Village, which has a large courtyard. And there is an alley that wraps around the side of Matt and Aaron's property and goes to the rear, connecting to Summit Place. Just a couple photographs of the property. I'm sure many are familiar with the typical row home layout. That was the front of the property. And just to give you an idea of the rear, again, the deck would be located above that kind of concrete area you see providing walkout access from the main level. Matt and Aaron occupy the lower level and the ground level, which is, basically the concrete area you see here, plus the first set of windows. And again, another kind of view you can see looking up the alley toward their neighbors on the right there. And I would just also note that currently the area behind the property is used for parking. And so part of this is to maintain that parking ability while also just, again, providing more outdoor space for the use of the homeowners. So these are the plans that have been submitted to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. The proposal is for, again, just the rear deck. It would be a total of 225 square feet. It would be the width of the property by a length of a little over, or I should say 12 feet. As part of that proposal, the requirement for relief is from lot occupancy, which is currently about 57%. And the deck would propose a lot occupancy up to 70%, which is what is permitted by special exception for the board. In addition to that, because again, this is technically a structure, although not interior space, it would be also reducing the required rear yard. So currently the rear yard is 20 feet, which is the minimum requirement in the RF1 zone. And this would be reducing the rear yard to 8 feet. So we have requested 2 pieces of special exception relief of the board. And here are, again, a section drawing and a rear elevation. You see the section drawing on the left that's looking down the alley to the south, I believe. And on the right, you see just a rear elevation view of what the deck will look like. And, I think the major point in support of the special exception request for both the lot occupancy and the rear yard is obviously this is a deck. And so there will not be any major impacts to light and air because it remains open on both the sides and the back. And so, again, that's obviously by design, and it will continue to allow the 2 parking spaces to be located underneath the deck while also meeting the needs of the homeowners. So that really kind of is the crux of our kind of presentation. We wanted to keep it on the short end because we did want to be available for any questions the commissioners might have. We do have 3 letters of support so far, including 2 neighbors along the alley and then the upper unit in this building. And I'm happy to talk any more about the special exception standard if need be, but other than that, we're open to questions.
Great, thank you. This seems pretty straightforward. I guess my one question is just about the letters of support, is whether you have a letter of support from the immediately adjacent neighbor. It looks like there's only it looks like there's a gap between on one side, but then it looks like there's an immediate adjacent neighbor, and whether you have a letter of support from them.
Yeah, so the Radomskis I know have met with them. They can speak to that if need be, but unfortunately we don't have a letter of support from them. My understanding is that obviously they have not come out in objection directly. It was a productive conversation, but the direct neighbor has not issued a letter of support. I would also note that, as you probably noticed from the picture, they do have a deck as well. And I do just want to point out that because of the change in grade, again, not to litigate anything off the bat with that simple question, Commissioner, but I did just want to note that you can see the change of grade. The deck will actually be significantly lower than where the windows are of the main floor of that property. And there are no windows adjacent on the kind of the ground level. So I did just want to note that for the commissioners, but unfortunately, no, there is no letter of direct support from the direct neighbor yet. And obviously we don't have a neighbor on the other side because there's the alley.
Yep. And Eric just added that. So we met with all the neighbors. We sent our plans and offered to meet with everyone that we considered, a direct neighbor up to 3 houses or 2 houses down and then 1 above. And so, yeah, our direct neighbors to the left of us invited us in. We walked through everything, walked through the design, answered all their questions. And the general consensus and feeling from their end is they're not a huge fans of continuing construction, and there's been a lot of construction on our street in the last couple of years, whether that be new units or just renovations. But they did not object to building a deck, but did not move forward with a letter of support at this time. So, if that's something we need to update at a later date, we're fine to, but they did not indicate they would have any objection or write any letter of objection.
Great, thanks. Commissioner Falskini. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I lowered my hand and forgot to unmute. After 2 years of this, I should be better. I guess my only question was, did the Radomskis also get a special exception for the length of their deck, or do they meet the 20-foot distance in the back? Because I do remember very early on in my time on the commission, we voted to grant another special exception on this block, but I can't remember if that was your immediate neighbors to the north or if that was a couple of neighbors to the north.
That's a good memory, Commissioner. The 2 neighbors to the north asked for a very similar special exception about a year ago, and it was granted.
Okay, so it was 2 to the north, and where does their deck fall from, like in relationship to where this deck would fall in distance from the back alley?
Oh, I'd have to look at that. It's a very similar sized deck. I mean, Matt and Aaron live there. I'd imagine it is a very similar in terms of what the reduction in the rear yard and the size of the deck would be.
I think the only difference would be, Eric, you mentioned Harvard Village. They have a gate that goes back, and the house 2 to the north might have an extra foot, maybe. The gate diagonals right behind our house. So that's where but I believe we have the exact same rear setback. But it might be a difference in a foot or 2.
But the deck, the size of the deck, I believe, is the same build.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that we're being consistent in the way that we're treating your block.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other commissioners with questions? Oh, Commissioner, go ahead, Commissioner Pollocky.
Yeah, thanks. No questions. I looked over this previously. It seems reasonable to me. Unless there are people lined up to speak who are against this, I see no reason to oppose it myself. And then, as a property owner myself, I'm always glad to see my neighbors increasing their property values, and it looks like a nice project. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks. Any members of the public have any questions? Or it looks like not. We don't have a ton of folks in attendance, so great. So I will move to advance this to the full commission and recommend that we support it. I believe I don't need a second in committee. I always forget the difference between committee. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Any abstentions? Great. Then we will advance this to the full commission with a recommendation and support. And so we will hear this at our full commission meeting on May 5th. I believe it's May 5th. Great. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, commissioners. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. So next on our agenda, we have a building permit and a related HPR Historic Preservation Review Board application or review. I'm not really, I have to admit, I'm not always clear on the terminology when it comes to the Historic Review Board, since this is not a it's a building permit and it is not a zoning variance, which is what we normally see, or a special exception. So if the folks who are here for that, for the Imperial, want to raise their hands, we can promote you to present. Right, Gordon. Oh, okay, I think it just sometimes takes a while for everyone to get promoted.
Chris.
Brittany, I keep trying to promote you. You have to accept on your side.
Oh, there we go. Looks like, oh, no. So I think we're just, yeah, Brittany is not, it is not, I don't know if it's not going through.
I'll keep trying.
Okay. So I guess if you, oh, okay, she's, okay. There we go. Great. All right, so go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
There we go. Hi, I'm Steve King. Brittany Roberson is my business partner, Bill Thomas, on that screen. And then Chris is who we're working with through the permitting process for our roof structure. As far as this process, Bill, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do. I have not done these meetings prior. I can speak more on the technical side of the structure, what we're thinking, its overall design, what it represents on the space, on our rooftop, if that's a good trajectory for us. We have a corner building that has a open air rooftop on the 18th Street side, the long side of the roof structures on 18th Street. I think everyone kind of has some drawings and renderings of the actual structure. And what we're trying to achieve is a weather-sustaining rooftop structure, a pergola design that is an aluminum structure that would have power brought to it, so it can be heated and so it could be fanned during the season. That basically just occupies the restaurant side of that roof structure. It's roughly it's roughly 34 feet by about 19 feet. It would be columned with 6x6 columns that would be 6 all in. And the height of it is approximately 12 feet just because of the heating element to it. So above the parapet wall that is on the long side of 18th Street, you would see approximately 7 feet of the columns with a top line that goes long ways. So that's basically the structure in a nutshell. The reason why this is permitting for us is obviously we're trying to put power to it. It is something that would have to be brought into the roof just for wind purposes, for anchoring purposes. But it's basically a skeleton that when it rains, the louvers would close, so it would create a flat top surface. But it is, again, a columned pergola style design. So that's what we got.
And add a little bit to that.
Sure.
So because of that, because the louvers can close, pitch and close, I think that classifies it as a penthouse, and that's sort of part of the relief that we're requesting is on that 18th Street side. It is like a non-conforming setback on that. So I have the plat. I'll share that. That might help visualize everything. So this is this is the corner lot here, and this is where the structure would go. There's sort of, this is an up seat. This is the seating area. And yeah, this is what you sort of see in the renders. This is where it would be. So this setback, I assume, from here to the edge of the lot is what is too short, I suppose.
Great. So basically, just to make sure I understand this, since I think this is a little bit different from sort of some of what we normally do, even for some historic preservation. So my understanding is just the concern is the visibility from the street is the concern of the historic preservation folks. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I guess, yeah, I don't know if you have anything more you want to say. I think we can ask if people have some questions. I know Commissioner Balaki reached out to some neighbors. I will note, I think I don't personally have any major concerns with this, since I think,
Right.
you know, but I also live in the other end of the neighborhood and I don't represent people right nearby, but it does seem to be, given, I think the structure, you know, personally, I think it looks pretty nice. So I don't think there's a ton of concern. I think there's a lot of places that have very similar things, even in our neighborhood. So, you know, it is interesting. But I am also not a historic preservation architect, which is, so I guess, yeah, I don't know if you have anything more you want to present, or Commissioner Balaki or Paleskini, if you have any questions.
I guess maybe the only thing to add quickly is that, again, as we've gone through this protocol and gotten on this agenda pretty quickly as we kind of went through the steps, and I know 2 weeks from now is also the larger ANC, we submitted documents to neighbors, our direct neighbors, which would be the Blaggard and Tamarindo. They verbally support us. They receive drawings. We can get written letters to submit to everyone as well. You know, if we need that. And then probably maybe questions may be a better way to go to have more clarity. Unless Bill, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would, can you hear me?
Yep.
The only thing I would add in is obviously, you know, a longtime resident, obviously founder of the Business Improvement District, Main Street, you know, and even voted one of probably the only business owners. I think there was 5 of us that voted to make Adams Morgan a historic district. You know, so, you know, we're well aware of the, you know, what we're asking. What we tried to do was create a minimum low profile, you know, roof structure that would give us a chance to be successful. Obviously, you know, the summer seemed to be unpredictable with heat and rain and the winters, and it's just been a real struggle. So it's just something that we kind of, you know, we thought maybe the tent or structure that we have now would be, you know, a little bit what we could use to help sustain business, but it's definitely not, you know, the kind of look that we would prefer, and it's something that, you know, we thought we could improve on. So we thought this would be the best way, and you know, we're in this for the long haul. We obviously own the buildings. You know, we bought 3 historic buildings, brought them back to life from, if, you know, I'm not sure how long everyone's been in the community, but, you know, we kind of actually spent a considerable amount of money bringing them back to historic shape. So we think this is more in keeping with, you know, the values of the neighborhood and the, you know, architectural integrity of the entire neighborhood and the structure. And it's something we've, you know, we've strived for, and, you know, kind of put our heart and soul into this project. So that's all. Thanks.
Thanks. Commissioner Balaki?
Yeah, thank you. And let me just ask a few procedural questions so I understand exactly what we are being asked to do here. And then I'll talk a little bit about response I've gotten in, you know, in my little district, which is of course just west of the site we're talking about. Is what you're seeking here just because we're in a historic district? I know you're a part of Washington Heights, which pulls you into this, but if this was not a historic district, would you still be asking for any sort of variances for what you're actually doing, just as a site in DC?
No, not to our knowledge, nothing. It's just the fact that it's a historic building in a historic district. Besides that, I mean, if it wasn't for that designation, we could have even built up the building multiple floors. I mean, obviously the span, but we knew that going in that was an option. And to be honest with you, if that would have been the case, we couldn't have afforded to buy the building. The fact that it had that minimal footprint made it economical for us to give it a chance, to give it a go. So, we honestly, I wasn't sure when we bought the buildings, because the buildings were in such disrepair, I wasn't sure what they were going to look like. I have to admit, I'm pretty pleased at what we did and how they came out. It's pretty shocking. And the red, and finding that piece of silver that goes over the south facing building, there's a metal archway thing that goes over the top that was original or added, which I don't know what that would have cost to make today, but finding that was, to me, though, and I was a history major, so I'm kind of a geek about this kind of stuff, but I loved it. And we kept the patina of it. I do love I love the buildings way more now than when we bought it, for sure. So,
this is a historic district. Is there anything other than what you've described? Is there anything sort of uniquely historic about this building itself? Anything in its literal history?
No. In fact, I think if you read the original historic application for the entire district, it lists these buildings. I don't know if it used these words exactly, but I'm pretty sure as 1-4 shanties, where the developer had built these buildings as a placeholder for when the property values went up. He was going to rip them down and build a real building. But the time came and went, and these little 1-story buildings never got bulldozed. They just maintained. So they went from being something that was meant to be temporary to then being designated historic 100 years later, which is pretty funny. So, and
I've lived on California for over 30 years, and I well remember what this little triangle was like, before you guys came along and rescued it. So, props to you for what you all have done. The chair mentioned I did a little outreach to my constituents. I'm a member of Facebook groups for California Street and Vernon Street for the 1800 blocks. So I blasted out a little message just sort of describing what you're doing and asking if people were interested. 156 people allegedly could have received this. Looks like about 70 of them actually opened it, which is 45%. I had one comment in return, and it was, a nice comment. I'll read it to you. A woman on Vernon Street named Catherine Bellinger. Quote, I know how important outdoor spaces are to local restaurants right now and moving forward in our new COVID reality. 18th Street is a lively nightlife corridor with lots of rooftops, and I would fully support the Imperial's rooftop being a permanent feature. Sure, I can hear lots of loud party goers at night on weekends, but I knew that would be the reality when I moved here. I have a white noise machine, and I want to see our restaurants stay in business. So that's the sum total of the response I got. So I think I can report that mobs are not going to be, surrounding your building, demanding that you not do this. So
that's nice to hear. It's nice to hear.
We would like mobs surrounding the building, though, to come in.
Yeah, coming in to spend money.
Get that. It's been a little tough. We haven't had a mob in a couple of years, so that'd be nice.
Good. So that's my report. I'm personally supportive of what you're doing here. I mean, it's certainly going to be an improvement over what you've got there now, which I understand. We've got a lot of interesting things that have happened under COVID here in the past few years, but we're slowly moving on. And I think this is, it's going to look good, and people are going to, it's going to bring a little more spark to the corner. So I'm happy to see us proceed. I guess my other question is, you guys need a letter from us. Is that from the full ANC that we would then generate on, I think it's May 4th, our next meeting?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you're giving great weight with historic. And that's what we need is I think a letter of support. And to be honest with you, I would love to see a unanimous letter of support, just because I do think what we do is pretty thoughtful, and the structure that really my business partner, Steve, who's spoke first, helped design. And I think that it's very thoughtful, very in keeping with the community, with the building that we did. And I want every chance to see it succeed with historic. And, they're going to turn everything down unless the community weighs in and says, we think it's good to support them. So.
Okay. Thank you much, and I yield back. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Felskini.
Hey, thanks so much. Steve, Bill, thanks for being such great neighbors. Thanks for what you've done to repair these buildings and to bring some thriving businesses into the neighborhood. Y'all are in my SMD. It's unfortunate with, the reality of physical presence these days. I haven't had an opportunity to meet you yet in person, but I'm happy to be able to do it over Zoom right now and to just say thanks. Looking at this building structure, it seems totally fine to me. Howard's the one who has more residents that are, even though you're in my SMD, Howard has more residents that are actually close by. My SMD kind of goes north along 18th Street over to 17th and then up to Columbia. So, look, I know the corner very well, walk past it all the time. My kids go to Marie Reed. Looking at the structure, you have literally zero residents directly to your west. To your south, you only have like one building a half a block away, and another where there are any windows that would even see the structure at all. You have no residents to the north whatsoever. It really is kind of in a location where it should have minimal impact on the community if there is any sort of noise impact on the community at all. And also very little visual impact except for that as seen from the street. I understand that there is a desire for, minimizing the visual impact of non-conforming, structures in historical space, but I don't think that that supersedes the need that we have to support our businesses in the current environment, or also to make sure that we make exceptions where exceptions are needed and they're going to be valued. So in this case, I certainly see the need for it. I appreciate you all as neighbors and the work that you do in our community, and am fully and totally in support of this, unless, as Howard said, some, mob shows up that seems deeply opposed, which I do not anticipate.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can't, I mean, the fact that the word need is used and stuff like that, I mean, thank you, because it has been a tough couple of years. And we just want to continue to try and make it. I mean, we're not completely out of the woods, but thanks. And those are super kind words. So I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks. So I think we can call for a vote unless any members of the public have any questions or comments, or any other commissioners who are on, but it does not look like it. In which case I'll call for a vote. So I'll vote in favor of recommending to the full commission that we support the application to the HPRB. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. So we 3-0 recommend that the full commission support it at our May meeting. At the May meeting, I think we can do a similar, very short description of the structure. We often spend more time at these committee meetings going over the details, so feel free to just sort of give a short overview, and then the full commission will vote.
Great. Well, then we'll see you on the 4th.
Yeah, thank you all.
Will that be in person on the 4th?
No, it'll also be Zoom.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Perfect.
All right.
All right. Thank you all. We appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
And that is the last item on our agenda. So our meeting